Discord.
Yeah, get that at everyone. Pull it up. Make sure we sound okay.
Yeah, we sound good.
Oh man, most of my like shorts feed on YouTube now is like comedy clips from like Chappelle and stuff. Just kind of makes me happy. Oh
Dude,
man.
I finally got my YouTube to where I don't get those like top 5 blah blah
Oh,
blah.
dude. Some of them
They're
are
so
bad.
annoying.
Some of them are so bad, dude. Just so much stuff that I'm like, please get this out of here. I don't want to deal with that anymore. I did.
So yeah, I was thinking. Go ahead.
I would say I did. Specifically, I'm trying to like utilize everything properly as far as like getting our social media stuff going again. So I did re-download TikTok, but I'm not using it. It's specifically going to be to put stuff into Dropbox to upload it onto TikTok. I actually have to turn off our push notifications. I was kind of surprised, dude. We still get a lot of likes and comments and all sorts of engagement on videos, and we haven't posted anything on there in a long time.
Dude, like a year.
I know. I couldn't believe it. I was, and I'm not engaging really. And I think I might on YouTube once we start doing that a little bit more again. But I don't know if I will on any other platform. I just don't have the time for it anymore. It's just I think we'll put clips up there, and
I was telling you, my keeper's been on my case about us starting back.
I know. You can tell her that was probably the kick in the butt that I needed to get going again.
Yeah, because she was like, "Y'all, you guys." She was literally telling me like, "You guys are wasting." Essentially, this aren't her exact words, but wasting everything when y'all did put in all this hard work and built it up. Y'all need to keep going. So I agree, and I was going to mention.
She's right. We know she's right.
I know. We've been slacking. We have, guys. I mean,
to be fair, we haven't been slacking for lack of wanting to do it. It's the time necessary to get it done lately.
Yep.
There's just been a lot going on, and I do feel like I'm finally getting into a place where I can make the time for it. Like I've got a little more control over how my like day to day is going, that I can schedule the time out, which is something I'm trying to get better about. And I'm taking the rest of the week off from work, mostly for myself, because I just need a break from the hectic environment, I need to be able to like breathe and like refocus. So I am going to be doing a good bit of like editing to get our podcast stuff caught up, and then start probably working on some shorts and some other stuff like that. Try to at least get a few things out here and there. And then the biggest thing is just like not overdoing it. Because like
not leading to burnt out, because that's the thing. It's easy to get caught up in, we need to release like 3 shorts a day, and we need to release 1 video a day, and we just need to realize. I think what kind of screwed us up is we didn't really calibrate last year when life changed for me. And
it just went
at the same time. It just went straight down, and we should have calibrated. Be like, okay, well, we can't do what we were doing before, but maybe we can do 1 clip a week and 1 video.
Yeah, we can do this thing here or there, and like a lot of the people, and this is something that I think everyone has to come to this like understanding of. When people tell you that you have to do like this specific thing, there's a lot of stuff that they don't tell you about the behind the scenes of that. Like we don't have a production team working for us. Like most people in our positions don't. And so we're lucky to be able to like get that stuff out as regularly as we could, and things just kind of change in our lives. And so it's like, okay, it's now become a little bit harder because I don't have the extra free time that I did.
Yep, because I went from working pretty much a regular job to straight back to working 80 hours a week.
Yeah.
And it's like, man, it can take if you're trying to put a clip on TikTok, well, TikTok has different standards from YouTube, and what I could show on YouTube, I can't show on TikTok. And then just trying to make a video already, it's going to take anywhere between, depending on how often I'm doing it, and then if I'm in my zone, probably around 30 minutes to do one. And so then it's like, man, that's not, your time's already limited at that 70 to 80 hour mark. And so then that's when it becomes a lot more complicated.
Honestly,
and the same with you.
Yeah. And at this point, I'm just going to start making the stuff that I think is funny and that I like from our conversations, and then adding in obviously like whatever we're talking about in sort of a video type format to it. And I'm not even going to worry about the algorithms anymore. I just don't even like it's I get it, and I understand why people chase that stuff, but at this point, I just don't care. I'm like, we're gonna put the content out. We're gonna do what we can to get it noticed, and we're just gonna keep doing what we've been doing.
Yep, I completely agree.
Yeah,
and hopefully like, I can get back focus to on. Go ahead.
I would say hopefully I can get back to doing some video game live streams too.
Yeah, dude. That's what I think. I'm not going to focus on like, oh, I got to do 1 clip a day.
Yeah.
I would like to do that. I like to do 3 clips a day, but the reality is, guys, is that this isn't my full-time job, and I just don't have that time to commit like I did before, 20 extra hours a week, to, doing the effort. And it really is a grind. I mean, if you really want to be successful at, podcasting and YouTube, you gotta put in. It's another job. You have to treat it that way, and that's why we got so successful. And the thing that helps with me and you is that there would be seasons of life beforehand, up until last year, to where you went through a season where you couldn't do as much, and then I carried the slack, and then I would go through seasons where I couldn't do as much, and you'd carry the slack.
Yeah. I think one thing too is like I think the idea of having to like focus on what the quote unquote algorithm was looking for was just starting to make me miserable. And like we weren't doing stuff that I enjoyed, whether it was talking about, criticizing Rings of Power, which was great, or whatever. It's like, okay, are we just like chasing after algorithms to get things noticed, or are we just doing the things that we want to do and talking about what we want to talk about?
Exactly.
And then
are we enjoying it?
Yeah, it's like allow the audience that likes what we do to come to us. So that's now that's kind of my goal, is like,
and giving and as we critique others, it's also giving our audience what they want as well.
Exactly.
And so, which is one thing that we've always tried to focus on since the beginning, once we gained an audience.
So all that being said, I'm just gonna roll right into this. Joseph, what? Okay, well, I guess I should set this up a little bit. I don't even know how this literally hit me before we started recording. I was just like poking around, doing some stuff, trying to get set up for this, and I was thinking about my list that I've been making of my top 100 movies for like your normie friend. So like stuff that you can get them to watch that is going to be a good entryway for someone who's not that into movies. And I still need to finish my second go through of Return of the King, because I finished all of it and then literally just started over again. And then I got about halfway through, but I've been like working, everything makes it really hard to sit down and watch like a movie for 4 hours after work. Because as soon as I sit down, my entire body's like, okay, it's time for you to go to sleep. And so I was struggling with that a little bit, but I was thinking through all of that, and I was like, I need other movies to add to this list. And then I started thinking about Lord of the Rings, and then I started thinking about Sean Bean, and then I started thinking about Equilibrium. And there's this awesome scene in Equilibrium that I won't spoil, because I feel like there's a lot of people who have never seen that movie. I'm going to actually watch it once we're done recording, because it's been a little while since the last time I watched it, and it's been a favorite of mine for really ever since I saw it, and I don't even remember how I got introduced to it. It was sometime in high school, and I don't remember. I don't know if it was like one of my friends was like, oh, this movie is kind of like similar to The Matrix, or it has like sort of similar vibes to it. And there's this Sean Bean has like for me, like one of the most memorable performances in that movie. Mm-hmm. He's excellent, and I think just he elevates anything he's in, as far as I'm concerned. And
I completely agree.
And he does that with this. And so I was thinking, it made me think of two things. And I guess we'll do this two ways, because I think my answer for this is pretty easy. What's his, first of all, Joseph, what do you think his best performance is of like everything you've ever seen him in? And second, what's his best performance? Also, if your answer is Lord of the Rings, what's his best performance outside of Lord of the Rings?
Dang, man. So let me see what all I've seen him in. Is obviously the first two things that come to mind is Lord of the Rings and then Game of Thrones, clearly. Oh man, what else has he been in that I've seen?
While you're thinking about it, there's this great clip that I saw where they were talking about making Fellowship, and that Sean Bean would not ride in a helicopter to get to the set that they needed to, and it was like on top of this mountain. And basically what would happen is that he would take some sort of like lift up to a certain point on the mountain and get off of it, and then climb the rest of the way to the top of the mountain to get to the set while everyone else was flying on this helicopter. And they said like every day while they were shooting, they would like look down and they'd see this man like climbing up the side of a mountain to get to the set. And I always thought that was really interesting. It's because I guess I don't know if they said he was afraid of helicopters or if he just like wouldn't get in it. But he just refused to fly in the helicopter to get to the set, so he had to climb a mountain every day. I guess up and down to get to the set of Lord of the Rings, and for Fellowship. And I always thought that was kind of. I remember hearing that, and I was like, "That's so funny." It's like those cool little stories, like the behind the scenes stuff.
I agree. That really it kind of lets you see some funny aspects of shooting films and TV shows.
Yeah, and how it's like everybody's kind of different with that stuff, and they're all like, you could just take the
everybody has their quirks.
Yeah, and he's like, no, I'm not doing it. Which I honestly, dude, I kind of understand. Like
helicopters are sketchy.
Yeah.
So I would say I'm thinking Game of Thrones. I remember his role in Equilibrium, which is he was really good in.
Yeah,
those are really the only three that come to my mind.
That's okay.
So I would have to say probably Game of Thrones after Lord of the Rings.
Okay.
Kind of the normie answer right there, probably.
It's okay. I was gonna check because it's been a while since I didn't actually. I'm gonna look up his filmography real quick. Man, he's 66. That's crazy.
He was in. Sorry, I was doing a big yawn.
He was in Troy. I forgot about that.
Oh,
and he's in GoldenEye.
No kid. I guess I just haven't seen
National
those
Treasure.
Movies I haven't seen those movies in a long time. Then.
There's a Equilibrium, Silent Hill. Let's see, what other. I'm trying to find stuff on here that's like really well known. Okay, so the other question that I want to ask you, and this is a bit of a spoiler warning, so if you don't want to know about this, even though this is one of the things he's famous for, what do you think his best death is?
Ooh, yeah. Trying to think. I would have to say it's for me. I'm biased though. It'd be Lord of the Rings.
Yeah, I think it probably is that too. I think. And spoilers, what I didn't totally want to spoil, but I think Equilibrium is probably number 2 for me. I really like him. Obviously he's got way bigger of a role in season 1 of Game of Thrones, so I don't know if it's totally fair to pit his role in Equilibrium versus the Game of Thrones role because one is way more developed than the other. But the impact that his character has in Equilibrium. Because of what happens to him in that, I think is better than Game of Thrones. Because it's like, I don't know. I'm sure someone could.
Game of Thrones one is really good because it's the whole season built up to it.
Yeah, and at the time it was very much, and maybe it's just an effect of time. Because at the time it was very much a subverting the expectations of the audience, and it was done in a way that a lot of people weren't expecting. Though I think it got spoiled for me before I watched season 1. But I just there's something about the way that everything works out in Equilibrium and the payoff that it has at the end of the movie that I just really love. I love the way that works. And it's funny. I was looking at the guy that directed it. He's only made like 4 movies, and Equilibrium is definitely the best one he's ever made. Like everything else that he did just wasn't that great. And it's like, well, I guess, everybody's, got at least one thing going for him. And I got to go back and watch it because it's been a while since I've seen it.
What a stellar movie to have in your filmography, though. I mean, 1 out of 4.
Yeah, that's pretty good. It's better than some people.
Yeah.
And
he's very like, you know what? I'm just going to stop here.
Yeah, he's like, well, I guess I already peaked, so we'll just move on.
Yeah.
And it's good. Like it's a really good movie. And it's back when, you could talk about the themes in a movie and it wasn't the only thing that people were like obsessing over.
Which guy were you saying only did 4 movies?
The guy that directed Equilibrium.
He's only directed 4 movies.
Directed 4 movies, yeah. At least according to Letterboxd.
Yep. No, he's
Kurt
directed
Weimer.
This one, Ultraviolet, Children of the Corn, and One Man's Justice.
And
but
I think this Children of the Corn might be it's a remake, so it's oof.
And he also was a producer on The Beekeeper, but he's written for a lot of movies too.
Yeah.
He's writing The Beekeeper 2. He wrote the first one. He did Expendables 4, your favorite.
Oof.
I know.
That movie was bad.
Point Break, Total Recall, Salt, Law Abiding Citizen. So there's that. But the end of that movie. I've heard.
I like that movie, but yeah.
I do, but I heard behind the scenes that it wasn't the writers, that there was an actor who did not want to. There was a reason that it was written that way.
Yeah, I've heard that too.
And I can't confirm or deny. That's just a rumor, so who knows? But I'll ask Jamie. I'll ask the actors. I know them really well after the show.
Yeah. I really, it's why I want to go back and watch Equilibrium. I want to try to get like a fresh perspective on it. But it's going on the list regardless. It's actually, I think. Okay, I don't know if we've talked about it yet, but obviously we're talking about that now. And I'll probably have more to say about it next week. Just because I'll have actually like sat down and watched it again. So we'll talk about it a little bit more next week.
How do you write some straight stinkers like
dude.
that? But then
So I'll say this because I've heard interviews with some people who have gotten their scripts bought in Hollywood. The scripts change a lot.
That's true.
So
I wasn't thinking about that. I remember that.
There's a movie called American Ultra that had Kristen Stewart and the guy that played Lex Luthor terribly.
Jesse
Eisenberg. And if you find the interview from the guy who, his name's slipping my mind right now. I think he got blacklisted from Hollywood for some indiscretions, but he did this interview years ago where he was talking about the process of writing American Ultra, and then what ultimately became of that movie. And his original idea sounds so much better than what that movie turned out to be. And I have a feeling that happens a lot. It does. So you sell your movie off, and so you get paid, and then you don't own the rights to that script anymore, and everyone else can now basically pick it apart and change it based on what they think the audience is going to want.
Yeah.
And it's kind of a gross thing. I remember hearing about that, and it really kind of like turned me off from a lot of the way that Hollywood works. But it's incredible to me that like anything can get made properly because of stuff like that. Because it's like his script was good. It was a really interesting idea. But Hollywood, especially at the time, and they're still kind of like this, even though I think in some ways for a while they loosened up because obviously like Guardians of the Galaxy got made. And I think a Hollywood from probably 10 years before that movie came out never would have touched something like that because they would have been like, what audience wants to see a movie with a talking raccoon and a tree that says, I am Groot? They're going to be like, we need to make him cuter and turn them into, pandas or something. Like they would just mess with the entire process. Whereas for a while, it seemed like they were willing to take more chances. And like that, again, we talk about A24 all the time. It's why and who knows what goes on behind the scenes with that too. It could be similar, but at least from the outside perspective, it seems like they're willing to take chances on stuff that's a little like weirder or niche or may not quote unquote sit with the audience as well, or like the audience might not accept it as well. They just they're like, yeah, go for it. Like see what you can do with that. And that's just something that's needed. So I kind of find that interesting. So it could be that what he originally wrote was great, and then it got picked apart and turned into like a super generic thing. Because I think even with Beekeeper, we've seen some of that where we talked about how it would have been way, if I remember correctly, Joseph, because it has been a little over a year, I think, since that movie came out, that it was a little too long, which obviously isn't really the script's fault. And then it also didn't dive into the idea of like previous beekeepers the way I think either of us wanted it to, where you could have just had it so that there were all of these other beekeepers or ex-beekeepers or people who didn't, and they're all coming after him. Sort of like, did you ever see Smokin' Aces?
Oh, I don't know if I have, but kind of like John Wick in the...
A little bit, yeah. So Smokin' Aces is about these two agents who were protecting a like important witness, and there's like 7 or 8 assassins or something like that are all trying to kill him. And so that, in my mind, is the way that you make that work a little bit better. It's like that works, and like you get a lot of different like personalities involved in your script with the different characters who are trying to come after your hero. But it didn't quite come off that way, which is why like there are aspects of that movie I like, and then there was stuff about it that I was like, it just didn't quite land for me.
Yeah.
But it's funny because we keep talking about that and not half the other stuff that we saw. I think we bring up Beekeeper more than nearly everything that we saw last year. It comes up a lot.
I need to find my list for 2024.
I know. I need to go back and find mine too. Okay. So, I guess we should talk about... Did you watch the Guillermo del Toro Frankenstein trailer?
Yes, I did.
So far so good. Am I too bold in my...
I don't think so, man.
The trailer was good.
I'm slightly biased towards him because I really like him as a director. Ironically enough, I know doesn't he primarily do horror movies?
Kinda. Well, he's got more of, I think, a gothic horror feel to him.
Yes.
They're not slashers. They're not.
He's like a refined, like the fine dining version of what's that dude's name that did Halloween Town or
Halloween
Tim
Town?
Burton. Tim Burton.
That's
what.
Yeah.
Yes. He's a rich man's Tim Burton. That sounds
sure.
so bad.
He dives more into kind of the gothic horror side of stuff, and I'm kind of like 50-50 on him. Pan's Labyrinth, is a movie that I like quite a bit, because it's like he was making A24 movies before A24 was a thing.
You there?
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yeah,
did I cut out?
It sounded like you did for a second.
Saying that he kind of was doing A24 movies before A24 existed.
Dude, I mean, like his filmography. I mean, I understand him getting credit for The Hobbit. He shouldn't his vision didn't get to come to fruition with that.
That was
Peter
cool,
Jackson
though,
stuff.
I think. Yeah.
Man, I think he hit the nail on the head. Part 1 would have been. It was only going to be 2 movies. Part 1 told from Bilbo's perspective, and then the second movie was going to be from Gandalf's perspective.
Yeah,
and
that could have been cool.
But so you're going to have Frankenstein coming up. So we'll see how that goes.
But
then you have Troll Hunters that he did. You have.
Did you see
The Shape of Water?
Yeah,
I did see Shape of Water.
I didn't really care for it, to be honest. It's not
like amazing, but it's not horrible. It's like it's fine.
It's been a while.
That was my impression.
Yeah.
He did Pacific Rim though.
He
directed it.
I like Pacific Rim. I think that movie.
Hellboy 2. The original Hellboy 2, not the.
He did Hellboy.
One.
Did he not do Hellboy. He did Golden Circle, didn't he? He did both of those.
He did the first one and the second one,
and then
which
he
is
didn't
the Golden
do
Army.
Golden Army, not Golden Circle. That's Kingsman.
No,
I think.
and it's I don't see. Oh, also Pinocchio as well.
You like? Oh, I've heard good things about that. I never did see
Pinocchio
it.
was really good.
Okay. So
At
all
first, I
right,
was
so
like,
fair
"Why am I
enough.
seeing this
It's probably
story
more than
retold?"
50-50. Yeah, he's probably closer.
Yeah.
He's done. I don't know if he just produced it, but there was like an anthology horror series that he did.
Cabinet of Curiosities.
Yeah, I didn't like it. I think I got through like two of
Okay.
them. I might have watched 2 or 3 of them and was like, and they were getting a little too like messagey with some things, and
Yeah.
it wasn't subtle, which was the problem. So
He was an executive producer on Kung Fu Panda and Rise of the Guardians, if that means anything.
whatever that
And and Puss in Boots.
you just put your name, like those executive producerships. Sometimes it's like you're just putting your name on something so that they can be like executive producer Guillermo del Toro because everybody knows the name. That's what those turn into a lot of the time.
He was a creative consultant on Megamind.
Oh, I know a lot of people like that.
Yeah, I know, but what the heck is a creative consultant?
I don't know. Maybe he helped with like story elements or visual elements.
Yeah.
They might have, and again, it could just be like a title thing. They bring him in to be like, hey, he helped us work on this.
I don't know. He's just a director that he does a genre that I don't care for, but when it ventures over into a genre that I like, it's like, yes, I enjoy this.
Mm-hmm.
I guess I like his aesthetic, his vision, how he tells the scenes that are unfolding. But again, like, I really wish we would have got his version of The Hobbit. Kind of disappointed because I'm like, I really, really like Peter Jackson. Obviously, GOAT for Lord of the Rings.
Yeah.
But it would have been really nice to get Guillermo's vision for The Hobbit.
Agreed. It was funny. I was scrolling HBO Max yesterday or day before, and I keep seeing War of the Rohirrim on there, and I'm like, should I? And then I'm like, nah, I want to watch something good.
Nah, dude, you're not missing anything.
I
The
know.
animation is so choppy in that movie, like bad.
Well,
there's some scenes that are really good, but then all the scenes surrounding it are really choppy.
Now I'll have to.
It's hard to even pay attention to the story. It's so choppy, in my opinion.
Yeah, I'll have to watch it for myself to like confirm this. Is it a product of people trying to copy the animation from Spider-Verse?
I didn't really watch the Spider-Verse to be able. I wouldn't be able to tell you.
Dude, you need to watch the first one. It's good.
Oh.
It is good. It's like genuinely good. It's not.
Okay.
It's not like the most original story, which is what people like. And what's funny about it is like even people who don't care for Miles Morales because they're like he's an OP Spider-Man because he just gets like all the powers, which I think is a fair criticism of him. Like he's got too many abilities. It's kind of ridiculous. Like he can turn invisible. He's got electric powers. He's got most of original Spider-Man's powers. It's a little goofy. That first movie, more so, the second one is a bit much. They lean real hard into the Spider-Verse thing, and I even by the time I got to the end of that one, I was like, oh boy, like it gets like a little too complicated for me. But you should watch the first one. I genuinely, the first one it's a good movie. The story is good, and it is kind of, to be fair, like it is kind of copy and paste of the original kind of Spider-Man thing. Like they lean a little too hard into what people know of Spider-Man for that. But I don't really think it's necessarily a bad thing. And then I think the soundtrack's pretty awesome too. So
I'll have to check it out.
Yeah, and the animation's good.
The animation's good. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
That's it. I mean, like, I don't want to give too much away, but yeah, like the animation's good. I think
I'll have to check it out. I think it was just like what happened with War of the Rohirrim is that they were rushing to put it out, and it was just
they just made a bunch of mistakes. I'll have to watch it at some point when I finally.
Well, there was a bunch of studios that worked on it, so it wasn't the same consistent studio, if I remember correctly.
Yeah.
I thought I read that somewhere. I could be wrong. Don't take that as gospel. But another show people have been trying to get me to watch that was talked up this past weekend to me. Was Andor season 2.
Yeah.
And I've been told there are people who are just straight, like more reliable people, let me say, They're saying like this is the best thing since the original trilogy. And some people saying that it's better than the original trilogy.
Oh,
I do know though that
no
allegedly, according
way.
to
No
Variety,
way, dude.
that Disney flushed $650 million to make season 2 because they were saying that it was like $27 million an episode. I'm like,
What are they?
dude,
I don't
there ain't no way it was.
I don't understand the economics of Disney at this point.
There ain't no way. I got to find the link to this.
It's
Variety.
I don't know, man. Like how are you flushing that much money on a television show that isn't going to get the viewership, isn't going to bring in new subscriptions?
Okay, so I think people have their understanding wrong. This season 2 had a budget of basically $300 million, $291 million. But the total production cost for both seasons of Andor was $645 million.
Okay. Still,
whereas like the rise of the world-renowned The Rise of Skywalker budget was $322 million.
Dude, they have to. It's so weird to me. I just don't know if this is like a really slow death for Disney. I'm just like, at what point do you look at this and be like, we've got to stop hemorrhaging money? Like, how much of a safety net do you have as a company that you're just able to make? Because like I know like Lilo and Stitch did well,
Yep.
but it feels like at this point that they've had way more flops than they've had successes. Like for a minute, let's forget whether the movie and or television show is actually good. And you almost have to forget their streaming service as a whole because it can't be making them money.
Because it's dead. I mean, most streaming is dead. Now, most of the money, this is why you're seeing Netflix venture more into live things, because that's where the money is.
Like
and I'm interested.
Stuff like that.
Yeah, speaking of which, the UFC rights are coming up, and I'm interested to see if UFC is going to land with
Netflix.
If they're going to do one provider, right, one streaming giant, or if they're going to try and do more like the NFL's model, and they have like and diversify more. Yeah. But like along to your point with Disney, it's like they have so many flops, and then even if they have a movie that does well, like let's say Lilo and Stitch, let's say it's at $627 million right now. Let's say it gets to $1 billion. Okay, well that's great for Lilo and Stitch.
Yeah,
but you're having the supplement. How many flops did they have this year?
I guess, and here's the other question. Like and this is something that I legitimately don't know. How was like their product line doing for that? Because the big thing that everyone has been talking about with Lilo and Stitch is regardless of whether the movie was successful or not, and it was kind of a guaranteed success because a lot of people talk about how Stitch is like a perfect marketing mascot. He's like cute, a little, alien, like a little bit out there, but he just like works as that mascot. Are they seeing like enough money in toys, all of that stuff, that it doesn't really matter how their movie and television side is doing, as long as something is propping all of that up to get people to start buying that kind of stuff? Is it enough? It's kind of a question, weirdly enough, that's going on with Pokemon right now too.
Right.
It's a little, you could call it inside baseball, but a lot of people are questioning whether the current quality of the Pokemon video games is going to start affecting the other like product lines that they have. So the cards, the toys, what am I missing? I know that there's some like other stuff too. But is the quality of the games, which is where all of that stuff is taken from to make everything else, is it going to suffer if the games are crappy? Because the last one that they put out had some of like the worst frame rates in existence. Like I almost stopped playing the game because they were so bad, and I kind of like white knuckled my way through it, mostly because Jake was playing it. But it was bad, dude. I mean, like you're talking 10 frames a second at some points. Like it is disastrously bad, and everybody knows it. But I'm just not sure if the sales for that, even though I think it did well, and that's the thing. But like hypothetically, say the game started performing worse, I don't know if that means that all of the other products they have that are really successful, if those would then start to perform worse because of that. And it's the same thing with Disney. It's like if their movies and television, it's not performing properly, does that mean that everything else is going to as well?
Yeah.
So I don't know.
It's interesting though, because like you look at like Thunderbolts, they had a budget for $180 million, and you'd multiply that 2.5 times, right? Because some people say two,
Roughly, yeah.
people say three.
Depends on the budget. It's not
even
every
more than
budget
that
is equal. You're just
Yes, I just do 2.5, just cut it down the middle. And so if that's the true, and they also, we know that these production companies don't release their true budget
right.
as well. So, but they only made $371 million worldwide. If their budget was 180, you're thinking like, 450. And then, that's not considering. Yep.
Because even
that's also not considering Captain America's budget. Whatever it was, we know that it flopped.
Oh, it was insane. I mean, that movie got remade twice, basically. So you have to.
And Snow White came out.
Yeah.
And what else came out this year? Moana 2. I think that was actually pretty.
I think Moana was successful.
Pretty successful.
I
would say
$1
billion.
Lilo and Stitch is going to be.
Moana did $1 billion, and that released November of last year.
Oh, okay.
So it came through. It was from November 27th through April 10th of this year. So $1 billion. It stayed in the theater for a long time. But we'll count half of that for this year.
Sure.
So $500 million for this year. So you got Moana 2 and basically Lilo and Stitch carrying Disney. But you can't have, and I think actually, hang on, we got The Lion King. I forgot that came out. That's a $722 million.
It did all. I would say it probably did all right, because I imagine that budget was pretty bloated too. And it didn't do as well as the first one. So, and something people have to remember, it's like a movie making its budget back or making a little bit over its budget is not going to be a success for a company like Disney.
No.
They're going to see it as a failure, because they want, especially when it came to Marvel for a long time, they wanted billion-dollar movies. They were trying to get...
They needed them.
Yeah, it was like Black Panther money, Captain Marvel money, Avengers, Infinity War, and Endgame money. Like, that's what they were looking for their movies. And they thought, I imagine at least, that they thought that they were going to make that kind of money just by whatever they were putting out, because it was obvious the quality was going down. Yeah, like Captain Marvel's not a good movie, but Captain Marvel looks excellent compared to most of the stuff that came out.
Well, people weren't going to see Captain Marvel because of Captain Marvel.
Right,
they were going to see Captain Marvel because of the hype and the tie-in to the upcoming Endgame.
Absolutely,
it was that bridge.
Absolutely, that movie wouldn't have been as successful if it had come out at a different time, for sure. Yeah. And obviously, as people went to go see it, and I think a lot of people left the theater just being like, oh, whatever, but you did get like a tie-in at the end of it. And so it was that excitement because of what was coming, that and you're like, we have to see all of them because we want to be there and have every bit of detail when it comes to Infinity War and Endgame.
Yeah.
And obviously,
I wonder if you think the box office will ever match what Marvel did for the box office, because I mean, to be straight, man, Marvel's probably the biggest heavy hitter when it comes to driving overall theater success. Dude. That's a huge era. That's probably peak era.
Yeah, that era of Marvel
just
is
purely based off of financial numbers.
Yeah, the Star Wars,
not quality, but just numbers.
Yeah, I don't think so. I don't the time frame between. Let's see. When did Avengers come out? The original one. Was it 2012?
Dude, I was gonna say 2011.
I think it was 2012.
It was 2012.
So 2012 to Endgame was like let's say, regardless of our personal opinions about the quality of some of the movies, even though I think for the most part the quality was a lot more consistent at that time period with Marvel than it has been since. Like, they fell off a cliff. But I think we were kind of in this weird golden era of like genre, because you got to think like Marvel was going on at the time. Game of Thrones was in its like peak during that time period. You obviously, like, even with DC stuff coming out, like, people were hyped about it regardless of the quality. I'm sure I'm forgetting some stuff. But all of that, Star Wars, coming out in 2015, coming back, and the hype surrounding that. And obviously, when we look at it post a lot of that, there clearly were a lot of flaws, but it really was in a way like a golden era for genre that just kind of got mishandled. And I just don't think we're going to see it again. I genre in general, I think, is going to peter out, and I think that we're not going to see the same kinds of huge budgeted, like massive, like everybody going to the theater. You know, Gen Z is starting to kind of be a dominant. You know, they're all in their 20s essentially now.
Right.
Or they're headed that way, and so like they're the core audience for things, and their attention is in other places, just like completely other places.
Yes.
You know, like Marvel was a thing for them, but I think everyone kind of put a cap on it when Endgame came out, regardless of how old you were, and that was it, and it's done. And then like TikTok took over during COVID, and video games and a lot of other stuff is just taking people's attention away from it. People aren't going to the movies like they were.
Yeah.
They're going for specific things, and obviously like kids stuff is always going to be pretty popular because it's kids. It's easy to market to them. It's like, ooh, a cute monster on screen or whatever. Let's go see Lilo and Stitch. And most of these companies just don't care about the quality of that stuff anymore. Like, I think Lilo and Stitch doesn't have a very good review score from users or critics, and it's still going to make a lot of money more than likely. We'll see if it hits $1 billion. How long has it been out now? Like, it's been like 2 weeks. So I guess it'll depend on how.
It's Memorial Day weekend.
I guess it'll depend on how it does in theaters, or like how long they keep it in the theater, which has been a problem for people. I was trying to see if they had the budget. It says production budget's 100. What? Hang on.
$100 million for Lilo and Stitch.
Yeah. Oh, no. Okay, I was reading the numbers wrong. $100 million.
Yeah.
No way.
Dude, I know that's
Not
what
a
I was
chance.
thinking for that movie.
That
there
seems,
ain't no way that was low.
Yeah, that seems real low.
There ain't no way Disney be making it for that.
Worldwide box office is 6.3 times production budget. So.
Yeah, because the box office is at $627
Oh, never mind. I read that wrong. Yeah, there's no way it's 100 million. That seems like a straight up lie to boost their numbers. Unless they're just paying the people who worked on that like pennies, which could be true too. That seems crazy. There's no way. But yeah, man, I don't know. Let's see. We talked about Frankenstein. We talked about this. All right, I think we're at a good point. Joseph, it's time once again. I need you to pick a number 1 through 75. And I'll tell you if we've already talked about it or not.
70.
Ooh, 70. This is a good one. Hang on, let me save real quick, and I need to put this on the other thing so I can give you a little bit more detail. Need that, and then this. I got to update my 2025 watch list. There's a couple things that I've finally gotten a chance to watch. This week, I think now that I have a little time off, I am going to sit down and try to catch up on a bunch of like the smaller stuff that I haven't had time to watch. 70. All right, so we're doing 70. Okay, 70. This movie came out in 1998, directed by Martin Campbell, who has quite a list. He directed Casino Royale. He directed Vertical Limit. Have you seen Vertical Limit?
Ooh,
the one about the climbers?
Maybe.
That movie terrified me the first time. There's something about it because like people are like cutting their ropes and dying, and like it's like PG-13, and it was like horrific the first time I saw it. I was like, oh no. He also, let's see, is there anything else in this list that is like super popular? Oh, he also directed the sequel to the movie that we're going to be talking about, and he also directed GoldenEye, speaking of Sean Bean. So that's a nice little circle back to that.
What did he, I probably won't guess it, what did he
This movie stars...
Give me the lead actor, how about that?
I'll give you the top two.
Okay.
Because I think if I give you the third one, it'll give it away too quickly. This movie stars Antonio Banderas and Anthony Hopkins.
Mask of Zorro.
It is The Mask of Zorro. It was obvious too with Antonio Banderas.
Yeah. If you would have just said Anthony Hopkins, I would have been like, dang it.
That would have been tough, but I couldn't just do that because there's so many Anthony Hopkins movies.
You're like, well, that narrowed it down to all of them.
Yeah, right. I love Mask of Zorro. I saw this in theater when I was a kid, and they're talking about stuff that like kind of scars you as a kid. There's a couple scenes in this that are like pretty intense, when you're like 9 years old. But I love it. I think it's such a fun action pulp like adventure movie. The cast is great. Anthony Hopkins is great anytime he's in anything. He sometimes they put him in stuff and he just doesn't get the sort of like respect that he deserves, but he is like a central character of The Mask of Zorro. Because it is a passing of the torch kind of movie before that became kind of like a gross thing that people did. It was an interesting idea to have the original Zorro pass on who he was to the next generation, which is actually something that that they also did with Batman Beyond, which is also pretty popular with fans, where you're not disrespecting what came before it, and in a way you're actually trying to be really respectful to the character, but do something that's like, hey, we want to do something that is a passing of the torch kind of movie, which I don't think there's anything wrong with that. I think it's just all in the way that you handle it. Like we talk about all the time with anything. It's like you're respecting the original source while trying to do something kind of interesting with it, and like a passing of the torch. It's the same thing with Batman Beyond, where it's like Batman is now an elderly gentleman. He cannot be Batman anymore. And so what does that look like if you wrote something around that idea? And you actually have two pretty like famous things, because you have Batman Beyond, and then you also have The Dark Knight Returns, which is Batman comes out of retirement for like the final time. So you have different ways of handling all of that, and Mask of Zorro, I think, does it really, really well. And I think it's really good. The sequel, take it or leave it, to be honest, but it's just such a quality movie, and we don't get stuff. Again, I say this all the time. I sound like an old man at this point. It was like, we don't get stuff like this anymore.
No.
People don't.
We don't realize how good we had it back in the day.
Dude, we didn't. We really did.
The movies that we thought were bad have just elevated with what we've been getting.
I know, and it's I always try to fight people with that a little bit, because I'm always telling people, it's like, no, sometimes those movies are still bad. There's just a new there's a new floor for it. It's bad. It's just not like we broke into the
basement.
We're
not bottom of the barrel.
Yeah, we've cut a hole in the barrel, and now we're going further. That's what's happening a lot with stuff. It's like the idea that some of the things that come out in theaters now were actually greenlit to come out in theaters is shocking.
Yeah.
It's like that. The quality sometimes that we get, it's like that's what B movies used to be. And for some reason,
I was talking with someone about B movies last week. I used to enjoy the Sci-Fi Channel.
Oh, me too.
And watching those.
Oh yeah, Sharknado and like all the stuff that they used to.
Classic.
I actually just realized there's another movie I want to add to this list. It's funny how that happens as we talk about these things. Give me 1 second, and then I want you to pick one more before we head out for. This list is slowly making its way to finally reaching 100. All right. Give me another number, Joseph.
51.
51. Let's see if we've talked about 51 yet. I don't know if we've talked about this. All right. I actually watched this again recently. So, number 51 came out in 1999, so a year after The Mask of Zorro. It was directed by Mike Judge, who directed Idiocracy. That's probably.
Would you say it released?
It released in 1999.
Ooh, that's hard.
He's okay. So
I'm thinking sitcoms here, like
Idiocracy,
in that vein.
yeah, Idiocracy is probably the other. Idiocracy's memed on a lot. I don't think it's going to help you figure out what movie this is, but it's kind of interesting. That movie has gained like new relevance for like online memeing, because it's basically about like how everyone in the world is like all the stupid people are still alive, and then the character, I guess he like wakes up in this future. I can't remember how he gets there. It's been a while since I've seen it, but he's like basically the smartest man in the world, and he's just like an average Joe.
Is it Office Space?
It is Office Space.
2 for 2.
Ron Livingston, Jennifer Aniston. Quite the it is
A list.
yeah, and I watched this again recently. Holds up so well. In fact, it's probably it I wouldn't be surprised if you see this movie start to get a bit of like a resurgence online. And I don't know if the rest of these movies are on this list, or I won't spoil whether they are or not. But there are 3 movies that make up sort of this. How was the way that I described this to Justin? There are 3 movies on this, not on the list. Sorry, there are 3 movies that came out roughly around the same time. They all sort of fall into different genres, but they're basically all about disenfranchised white collar workers. And it's Office Space, Fight Club, and Falling Down. And they're all 90s movies. They all came out roughly around the same. Well, actually, they all came out around the same time. I don't know if Fight Club came out in the 90s. I can't quite remember. That one might have been 2000. No, that one came out in 99 as well. And then I'm pretty sure Falling Down came out around the same time. I'll double check real quick. But I think I am correct about this. But they're all basically about. This one came out in 93. So yeah, they're all 90s movies. But I would call them. They're like for me, they're like kind of an unofficial trilogy. Because one of them is about a white collar worker who finally has had enough and kind of goes on this like rampage. One of them is about a white collar worker who's had enough and basically just gives up on everything, and somehow it's like the hilarity of him going through like promotions, and you know everything starts like working out for him when he does that, at least to some degree. And like he kind of finds his way. And then Fight Club is also about a white collar worker who loses his mind and kind of goes on. And it's funny. It's like the call to adventure kind of exists with all 3 of these movies too, in kind of a weird way. And they all sort of like become who they were meant to be, like through that. And like Falling Down's like far more of a tragedy. And then you have, Office Space being a comedy, and then Fight Club is, I mean, like Falling Down's a drama, but it's kind of more of it got a little bit more going on with the action side of things, and then Fight Club's a bit more of a drama with like a little bit of the action stuff in there, but it's not the primary focus. It's like a character drama, and I find it really interesting that looking at Office Space now, the mentality, especially of all 3 of those movies, I think is starting to bubble up again. And I'm really curious if you're going to see like a resurgence of movies with those sort of like themes in them again.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Because we went through a period of like those movies were looked at as sort of like, especially in the 90s, early 2000s, those were movies that like I kind of grew up on and like found to be really interesting and really cool, even if I didn't like Falling Down the first time I saw it. I was too young. I didn't fully understand it. And then like as I've gotten older, I'm like, oh no, I get it now. I'm like, I get it now. And it's not, I think a lot of people don't, there's a lot of people who don't sympathize with the main characters of that anymore. But if you've worked any kind of like mundane job and you feel like you're losing your mind and you feel like there's like more out there for you, you watch these movies, you're going to understand like the struggles of these characters like way more than when you're like kind of growing up in like high school, college, and everything's not necessarily provided for you, but like your life's not kind of dependent upon you and like doing this day in day out grind, and getting stuck in traffic all the time and having to deal with a lot of people who are getting under your skin over all sorts of things. Like it's very interesting. And I highly recommend all three of those movies. Falling Down's the only one of those three that I haven't watched recently, so I need to go back and watch it again. Because it might end up on the list. We'll see. But yeah, I love Office Space. I think it's hilarious. I love the concept. There's a lot to appreciate about the characters in it and the struggles that they're going through. Because it's a comedy, but it feels really down to earth. It's like classic. There's like some classic characters and lines from that, and I highly recommend it. So, yeah, nice. That's number 51 on the list, Joseph. And we're close enough to an hour with that, so I think we can kind of close out here. This has been fun. I love doing this. And it's fun for me because I get to go back and kind of look through some of these and just sort of like think about. I still need to go. We talked about Iron Giant last week. I still need to go back and watch that again.
Same.
And there's still so many. I mean, we haven't even hit some of the big bangers on this list. But we'll get there eventually. All right, so hopefully by next week hopefully by next week maybe we'll both have seen Ballerina.
Yes.
And then I'll probably talk about Equilibrium again because I'll have finally got to sit down and watch it. And then I'm going to catch up on like a bunch of stuff is my goal before we record next. Not necessarily to have like in-depth conversations about it, but just to give updates. Be like, hey, here's all the stuff that I watched. Maybe here's some recommendations and here's some stuff to avoid. So we'll see. And I got a lot of editing to do. So if you're listening to this in podcast form, forgive me for taking so long to get all these episodes out and updated and all of that. But we're trying to get refocused, trying to get locked in on really making the show back to what it was in our heyday. So we'll keep grinding. We'll keep going.
You know it.
And unless you have anything else to say, Joseph, I think we'll close it out.
No, that is it, man.
All right. Well, thank you all for tuning in to episode 208 of The Underground. And we'll be back next week with more. Yeah, maybe we'll have some news. Maybe something will happen. I feel like we're just like kind of waiting around. Yeah, and we'll be talking about Ballerina and hopefully some other stuff. So until then, y'all take it easy.
See ya.